While modern race fans might most closely associate the British Grand Prix with Silverstone, there was a time in Formula One racing where it shared the prestigious event with Brands Hatch. This narrow, hilly, and short circuit is very much at odds with the fast, wide, and flat Silverstone. But the challenge this place presents is doubled when you add the Lotus 49 into the equation. That is exactly what our drivers are attempting today, and we'll see who handles it best as we get ready to watch Round 7 of the Lotus 49 World Cup. And you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Johan Vandenbelt. Behind the scenes is our director, the Dr. Amjad Yaman, and he's using cameras provided by Ducky Beard. Johan, even though F1 doesn't race here anymore in real life, it certainly seems to be a thriving circuit with quite a few real World Series holding rounds here.
Yeah, exactly, Joe. Several high-profile series visit the track each year, like BTCC, DTM and Blancpain GT. Now, Formula 1 was arguably the biggest series to visit Brands Hatch, which happened 12 times. Interestingly, the Lotus 49 we see on track today actually ran twice at Brands Hatch. Joe Siffert bested Chris Amon for the win in '68, and 2 years later Graham Hill managed to scare 1 point at the track. Now, there has been racing at the circuit for almost 100 years, but the first layer of tarmac was only built in 1950. The first layout was basically the short Indy circuit you see on the right, with the fun fact that the track ran in the opposite direction you see today. 3 years later the direction was reversed and the Druids hairpin were added, and in 1960 the longer Grand Prix extension was built. This extended the track to the 3.5 kilometers and roughly the same layout we see today. Brands Hatch Grand Prix only hosts 9 corners, but several of these corners are high-speed bends with small braking zones, making it difficult to send your car alongside your rivals. At the same time, you have to show full commitment over the hills to be quick around this track. But be careful, as perilous gravel traps and patches of grass are always ready to catch an unaware driver out. So how does a full commitment lap in the Lotus 49 look like here, I hear you ask? Let's hop on board our GSRC Lotus 49 for a lap around Brands Hatch.
Alright, we're in the GSRC Lotus 49, so let's do a lap around Brands Hatch. Panic Hill Bend is incredibly difficult to squeeze the most out of in this car. It's bouncing around on entry, it's a curved braking zone, and then the track drops away too. Ease back onto the power smooth and let the compression cause the car to grip. Druid should make for a potential passing zone, but the braking is heavily shortened by the uphill nature. Like any hairpin, square this one off, but in this car, it doesn't always pay off to track out all the way. You have so little time to switch sides for Graham Hill Bend, and this car needs to be settled. Make sure to use up the runoff to the outside, as that's fair game and it helps you carry your speed. Then it's a short blast down to Surtees, where once again the track curves as you get to the binders. A late apex tends to pay off, but even if you straight line it, the car likes to lose traction. And that can really hurt on the run over Pilgrim's Drop, which is the fastest section of the track. But despite the top end, the braking for Hawthorne is pretty short due to the compression and the fact that the corner is just plain fast. Coming out of there, hold to the left and really focus on your markers, because the back half of the track is punishing. Westfield is very blind on entry and the car struggles to find grip on exit. Expect drivers to short shift just to find traction. Dingledale and Sheen are just as treacherous, and the apex isn't visible until you're right on top of it. Once again, not much time to set yourself up for Sterling, where you really need to use the banking to carry your speed. Getting a run off the corner is important, because otherwise you could be susceptible to attack into Clark. The crest makes the car understeer mid-corner, and then you'll be fighting to keep the car stable as you get back on the gas. A little lift is needed on the Brabham Straight, but hopefully you've now finished a lap around Brands Hatch.
You can see the laps are pretty quick, even in this old machinery, pretty fast around here in the 49. Now, qualifying is on its way, so while we wait for some lap times to get onto the board, let's take a look at the points championship. Up at the top, no surprises here. McClarridge leads the way over Dudagnon. Now, Dudagnon has used up all of his drop weeks, and unfortunately, he is not here today, so he's going to continue to drop down the order. Now, he can still catch Mick, so it's not over yet, but it's going to be a lot harder with the tear that we've seen him on. Unahola, how about the season he's been having? Wow. He's raised himself up on the top 5, and not just that, but into 3rd in the points. Billy Bob is going to want to try and correct that, as he is usually finished within the top 5 in most seasons. He gets slotted down to 4th, and Benjamin Zocco stays in 5th. Now, there is also the sort of amateur championship. They call it the F2 championship in this series. And Johan, what's that look like?
Yeah, you just spoke about the Finnish driver Tommi Unhola, who's doing well. Well, another Finnish driver that's doing very well, Hideki Koivisto. He won the last round at Imola, and he's currently leading the Formula 2 championship with 56 points. He beat Eugenio Massa in Imola, and as you can see, the gap is a massive amount, 12 points. Big gap so far for Koivisto. Massa is still holding P2 in front of Andrew Eng, and Don Good won 1 place opposed to Barry West. They are P4 and P5 in the Formula 2 championship.
Of course, there is the Constructors' Championship, which is essentially a nation's championship. The highest driver from each nation contributes points. And naturally, with Mick Claridge winning the Drivers' Championship, United Kingdom up at the top there as well. Now, Finland has moved themselves into 2nd. And the United States has moved themselves into third. A very close fight between them. And Dudignon's the only one holding the flag for France, so they have dropped down into second. Australia as well only has Zoko contributing points over there. They sit in fifth. And we're starting to get a few times on the board. Before we look at that, though, let's take a glance at what we're in store for today. Johan, what do they have in the Lotus 49 World Cup here at Brands Hatch?
As you mentioned, on top of the broadcast, we are at round 7 of 12 races this season. You can see 2 watermarks behind it. That means that we have 2 drop weeks. You already talked a little bit about it, Joe. The drivers will drop the worst 2 results for their championship title. Now, Brands Hatch will lap 24 times today in open setups. That means that the drivers can tweak the setups, turn all the little knobs, and make it just to their liking out there today.
All right, up at the top of the board right now, Ove Trangarade, interestingly. Mick Claridge not doing too hot. I know, Johan, you were telling me about he was a little bit below a few people in practice and in warm-up before this session. And Matt Wood, you can see holding down third. Let's see, has Mick run both laps? No, he's on his second lap right now, so he could still jump up to the pole here.
Yeah, Mick Claridge didn't put a lot of practice laps in, and he was P5, P6, like not really the position we usually see him in. But I have to say, I think I predict this a little bit. Mick Claridge is probably the driver to beat, because a few months ago we ran the Indy layout of Brands Hatch in these Lotus 49 cars, and Mick Claridge was almost unstoppable there. He beat Enzo Canta over 5-6 seconds in front of P2 at the end of the race. So I think that Mick Claridge is one to watch today, as he's coming out of the last corner in his second qualifying lap, going over the finish line. Is he able to beat Ove Trangarade?
No. Ooh, interesting.
Around 1.5 tenths slower than he was before. Dave Price, however, as we see on screen now, put his car in P3. Good lap time for Dave so far.
And I believe Mick was talking in the forums about a good battle that he had with Dave in one of the previous races this week. Here we see Johnny Bell down in 16th at the moment and coming across for his second lap. Let's see if he can move himself up. Not used to seeing his name out here. I'm not sure if he's a newcomer to the series. He does best his time, but he is only as good as 18th at the moment with that. Daniel Murphy as well trying to get a lap in. Right now at a best of 1:33. Don't think that is a representative lap with that being a few seconds behind everyone else.
Yeah, looking at the qualifying times as they stand at the moment, I'm looking at P5. Edward van Velzen, I think he has probably put both his lap times in so far, but he has done an impressive 1:24.2, putting him 2 tenths clear of Billy Bob, and in P5. Now, that's a lot better than he did last week, so Edward van Velzen is looking to feel really at home here at Brands Hatch.
The only driver that has yet to put his second lap in is Daniel Murphy and Marco Ravioli, who we saw on screen there for a moment. Murphy's coming up the line now. As he crosses the line, currently sits in 20th, last car with a timed lap, and this one's not going to count, so that 1:33 will have to stand. Marco has put in his 2 laps, excuse me. He's just out there warming up. So our grid is set with about a minute left to go, as everybody out there on track is just trying to get a little bit extra practice in. Let's go through our grid. Ove Trangarade gets it on the pole. Can he be the one to finally stop the rolling tide that is Mick Claridge? Will be on the outside of the front row. Dave Price will start in third, followed by Matt Wood in fourth. In row 3, Van Velzen starts in fifth, flanked by Billy Bob Wright in the 6th position. Benjamin Zoko will start in 7th today, followed by Matt Wright in 8th, Richard Morin in 9th, and Gary Teal will round out the top 10 of what is a large field today.
The double 1 position is taken by Tony Theolis. He starts in front of Andrew Eng, who starts the race in 12th. Neil Kemp slots in P13 next to Andres Bruno. Raymond Smith puts in a 1:25.7 to qualify P15 in front of Hideki Koivisto, the leader of the Formula 2 Championship. Don Good starts in 17th in front of the newcomer Johnny Bell. Gary Anderson starts 19th in front of Daniel M. Murphy, and like you said, Marco Ravioli is the only one who didn't put in a lap time and starts in 21st.
And with that, warm-up is over. You can see the cars heading to the grid out there. Now, one thing you and I were talking about before this race, and that qualifying is going to be so important out here, Johan, because the passing, we're expecting it to be incredibly difficult.
Yeah, there's not a lot of easy overtaking maneuvers. We were talking, like you say, Joe, before the race, like you have Paddock Hill Bend. That's probably one of the places where you can do it Druids, but it's difficult because the braking zone is almost immediately after Paddock Hill Bend, so it's difficult to put the car side by side. Maybe the last corner of the circuit, Clearways and Clark Curve, you can try and move there, but the whole infield part, there's such quick corners with really short braking zones. It's really difficult to make a move and a braking. Now, probably most overtakes that you'll see today is because drivers are making mistakes, and the people behind them will capitalize on those mistakes to get ahead.
So keeping focus and being able to withstand the pressure going to be critical if you have anybody fast behind you. Wonder if that's going to affect Ove today. Does Mick maybe have better race pace than qualifying pace? We'll wait and find out. The lights are up. Cars are revving. Green flag is out here on round 7. It's a good start from Ove Tranqueray. McClarridge looks pretty solid. A little bit 3 wide for a moment there in the back. Matt Wood slots into 4th round. Paddock Hill Bend is going to be the critical one as you've got a tippy toe over the hill, but everybody's safely through.
Billy Bob immediately trying a move on the inside of Edward van Velzen. He hugs the inside and gets past the Australian driver. Billy Bob elevates himself to P5. Edward van Velzen slots into P6.
We see heading down to Surtees now, one of the more difficult braking zones. We see a bit of a defensive move from Benjamin Zoko, and that's going to hold up Gary Teal, who's now under attack from Matt Wright as they come over Pilgrim's Drop into Hawthorne. Not as much braking as you'd expect into this corner, but a very clean first lap here, Johan.
Extremely, and we're looking at Gary Teal. He had an incredible start so far. Made up 2 positions. Now, when the field is this close, that's the moment that you have to strike and get overtakes. Where Gary Teal almost overtook 3 people. He has to settle for 2 people in lap 1. He's currently sitting in P8.
Speaking of which, we have a battle for the lead as Tranqueray made some mistakes here at the end of the lap. Claridge takes a try around the outside of Clearways as they accelerate out of Clark. He might actually have it done. He's still on the outside. I don't think Ove is going to take this one sitting down. Oh, but look at that. The Brit gets it done, and after 1 lap, goes from 2nd to 1st.
Beautiful overtake. Tranqueray went a little bit loose on the apex of the last corner, and that hurt him on the straight. He couldn't get enough traction to stay in front of Mick Claridge, so Mick Claridge currently leading. Let's see if he can make a gap now towards P2.
Certainly help him. Doesn't want to be under pressure this whole race. Dave Price holding on to the back of these 2, but it is basically a breakaway of the top 4 at the moment. And then you've got a bit of a gap back to 5th where Billy Bob Wright still fending off on Velsen as he hurriedly wants to try and get back into that top 5.
Edward van Velzen was 2/10 quicker in qualifying, so maybe it's a little bit safe to say that Edward van Velzen has a little bit more pace around Brands Hatch, and he was so close around Graham Hill and Cooper, but he wasn't able to put the car side by side into Surtees. And now in all these quick right-handers, he cannot put the car side by side, and he just has to follow Billy Bob for now.
So narrow on the back of the course. Look at how much he's climbing all over the back of that Lotus 49. If these guys start battling, though, you can catch flashes on the screen there. His fellow countryman, Ben Zoko, is trying to see if he can get himself into the mix as they come to complete lap 2 here. A great exit from Billy Bob Wright to keep himself safe into one of the potential passing spots here in a Paddock Hill Bend.
Yeah, but with a good exit like that, Billy Bob will be safe for P5, although Edward van Velzen gets really close on the braking there. Almost touches the rear gearbox of Billy Bob. Evades him, though it isn't able to put it side by side into Druids.
Yeah, Billy Bob knew that was coming. He turned in early for the apex to chop him off as we ride on board with Van Velsen. Up on the top of the screen, you may have seen Mick Claridge, now that he has been freed, has set the fastest lap and is trying to stretch away from Tranqueray. He's got the gap up to half a second at the moment.
As we see, Edward van Velzen has a good exit out of Surtees, but not good enough to really try and send it side by side to Billy Bob. Billy Bob doesn't even have to defend going into Hawthorne Bend. You can just stay in front of him, and then yeah, it's too short of a straight to put it side by side into sheet.
Flying through the trees that line this course all the way up to the Armco. Not like modern courses where they look for those clear sight lines. Very beautiful, but also very tricky. Wow, as things get a little tight now between Van Velsen and Zoko. He's now on his rear guard instead of on the attack as Benjamin seeing if he can poke and prod his way through into sixth. Whoa, big slide through clearways for Van Velsen. Certainly not going to help him.
It's twice in one lap that Edward Velsen got loose in the middle of the corner. Clearways, like you just said, and in Sheen. And you see immediately that he loses the connection he had with Billy Bob and Benjamin Soko's on the still. And this is what we talked about, Joe. Those little mistakes, that's where you have to capitalize, because it's so difficult to get a run. As Edward Velsen again goes a little bit wide, and that causes Benjamin Soko to send it on the inside. The Druids not able to make it stick, however.
He got awful close. One thing you don't want to do in these cars is touch wheel to wheel. Zoko knows that. He wisely backs out of it, gives him some space. But, another missed apex for Van Velsen. He seems all out of sorts here.
It's almost like someone has to say to Van Velsen maybe to just focus on your own race. You have the speed, and maybe he's looking a little bit too much in his rearview mirror to see what Benjamin Soko is doing and how close he's getting. Because he's making a few little mistakes, but currently still in front of his countryman.
And while this has been happening, Trangrade has put his foot down. What was half a second has come down to 0.3, and he is now on the back of Mick Claridge, seeing if he can retake the lead. Didn't even get to lead a lap, did the Scandinavian, as he slides it through clearways. That's going to cost him a 10th.
Yeah, that's not going to help you if you want the traction to try and overtake into Paddock Hill Bend. As you can see, look under braking how much closer he's getting to Mick Claridge. It's almost a 10th he wins there. Mick Claridge goes a little bit wide on the exit. Defends the inside of Druids, but over Trangrade doesn't find a way past, Joe.
Claridge went purple yet again. So, and we saw how close Trangrade was. So both of them really applying the power around this course and starting to stretch away from Dave Price a little bit. But two different lines around most of the corners that I'm seeing for both drivers. And he's getting very close. This is a good opportunity. He's going to have the slipstream as they come down Pilgrim's Drop up towards Hawthorne. But like I said, not much braking. He's going to have to be a lot closer to the Brit to try and attempt to pass into that right-hander.
A little bit behind though in P11, Tony Tuolis is fending off a hard charge, or no, just overtook Andrew Eng, and that cost Andres Bruno and Hideki Koifisto to catch up with each other. That's P12 to P15 caught in one shot. P16 a little bit behind him, Raymond Smith as well. Very close here. You can see that once one overtake is made, everyone behind him just catches up to each other like an accordion. Hideki Koifisto tries to move, gets really close to Andres Bruno there. Oh, slides a little bit on the apex of Sheen, but saves his car.
Yeah, it was a great catch from that number 13. I'm sure he's not going to want to make that mistake again. Not often you can get away with that in that fast right-hander. Up ahead of them, Eng not giving up on Teolis despite being overtaken. He wants that position back as they work their way through Paddock Hill Bend. Not much grip over that crest, plunging down into the hill where the car compresses and then braking uphill, shortening it, that braking zone into Druids. But for now, Teolis is safe. We talked about that F2 championship. I think the highest driver that would qualify for it is Matt Wright at the moment, if I'm seeing correctly.
I think so as well. Yeah, Matt Wright is currently P8 in the Formula 2 Championship, so he has a little gap to Hideki Koifisto, but he's in front of the Finnish driver, so this surely will help him in that Formula 2 battle.
Yeah, and he's looking to get another position over Gary Teal at the moment. And in case you're wondering, Matt Wright, yes, indeed, is related to Billy Bob Wright. I believe that is his nephew, if I remember correctly.
I didn't know that. Well, Billy Bob, or William Wright, is doing quite well currently in P5. He has extended the gap to Edward van Velsen by almost a second now. So it seems like Billy Bob has dropped the Australian quite a bit behind.
Did something happen to Matt Wood? I'm seeing him grayed out. Did he have a connection issue, or?
I think so. He was going through the start-finish line and he just disappeared.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's heartbreak. He was currently in P4. I was looking at him a little while ago because it was like he was in the middle of nowhere, driving in P4, a little bit behind Dave Price, but way in front of Billy Bob. And that loses him the P4 position.
Might want to get a replay because a pass that was a long time coming. Von Velsen outbraked himself into Druids, and Zoko said, "Thank you very much. I am going to move into P5." And they're still going at it, so we're not going to get a replay quite yet. And Zoko gives it back as Von Velsen takes it into Surtees.
Yeah, Van Velsen had a great exit out of Surtees. Benjamin Zoko on the outside just couldn't get the power down as well as his fellow countryman. As we go into a replay of the overtake.
Here you're going to see on that uphill, we talked about this being one of the more likely places, and getting a little greedy on that left foot there for Von Velsen. Handed it away momentarily, but grabs it right back.
Edward Van Velsen just had a big moment going into Sheen, dropped 2 wheels on the grass. His car went wiggling left to right, but he managed to save it, however. That caused Benjamin Zoko to catch up a little bit to him. Great car control from the Australian to not put it in the wall there.
And most of the drivers starting to separate a little bit out on track. Although this battle definitely still very hot as they work their way. Oh, and a little wide through Paddock Hill Bend from Von Velsen. Just like last lap, up to the inside goes Zoko. He gets through, but all this battling has now brought Gary Thiel and Matt Wright up to the back of them.
Exactly, they are profiting incredibly from the mistake that Edward Van Velsen made there. Edward Van Velsen has a good run, however, out of Graham Hill. Not able to put it side by side into the Surtees. You can see, maybe in his rearview mirror, you can see flashes of that number 4 car of Gary Thiel looking left and right.
Can't repeat the feat of making it overtake through Surtees, but he's going to hold close onto the gearbox of Zoko. Now as they hit Hawthorne. Ooh, Zoko a little too hot into there now. Could we see a pass into Westfield? Von Velsen thinks yes. He sticks his nose in. He gets the apex. And behind them, this is slowing everybody up. Oh, and a big mistake from Thiel.
No. Oh, Gary Thiel tried to dive on the inside there of Benjamin Zoko to capitalize on that, and his car just got loose and he spun it around. Now he did not touch the wall, but he loses several positions and slots him behind Tony Teolis, I think in P10 or P11.
I was a little bit offline, and you were telling me about just how tough it is to get the power down out of Westfield.
Yeah, it is. It's a very difficult corner to get the power down because you're always turning a little bit to the right, and it makes it really difficult to get the power down. And yeah, Gary Thiel just loosened the car there, as you can see on board by Matt Wright.
Great evasive maneuver by Wright to stay out of that as he went spinning across him. Now Teolis makes a mistake and actually hands the spot up to Gary Thiel. As we look back to this battle for the top 10, Thiel gets it back, and now Koivisto behind them, losing position as Andrew Ang gets past him.
Koivisto was behind Andrew Ang when we looked at them a little while ago. I think Andrew Ang is maybe slowly falling a little bit back. He was also in front of Andres Bruno when we looked at it before. It seems like Andrew Ang had a very good qualifying session, but maybe doesn't have the race pace that the people behind him have.
Now, as all this mid-pack action has been happening, we've completely ignored the battle for the lead, which really hasn't let up. And we might want to keep our eyes on this because Trangarade has been patiently waiting behind Mick Claridge. They've got a 2-second gap back to Dave Price, so they're not under threat right now. I wonder if maybe Trangarade is biding his time, just looking for an opening anywhere it might happen.
It's so difficult because you know as a driver that this is an extremely difficult track to overtake. So where will you do the move? Will you try to put the pressure on and just hope that your the driver in front of you will make a mistake? Or will you try to force the issue? And if you do that, where do you do it? Do you do it into Druids, maybe into one of the quick right-handers? It's a really difficult choice that Trangarade has in front of him. Going through Surtees now. If you can get a good exit, though, he might be able to put a lot of pressure on Mick Claridge and to Hawthorne. It seems like they're both getting away from that corner quite well.
And we should point out that these two are not doing this just settling for good pace. They've been setting fastest lap after fastest lap. Last time, it was Trangarade with a 23.2. So both drivers very much pushing. And let's stay on this with just a bit of an update. Fans of Matt Wood, he has come back out on track after he unfortunately lost connection, but he is 3 laps down. So at this point, he's just circulating, looking to get a little bit of safety rating and maybe capitalize on a few points if anybody else falls by the wayside. So coming back onto the Brabham Straight, Claridge is safe for now, but you have to wonder, how long is the Norwegian going to sit there waiting behind him?
One thing that I just noticed, Joe, after 11 laps, we still do not have any retirements. It seems like, or as I'm saying that, Marco Grafioli is in the pits. It seems like it seems like at the moment I was saying that he had a moment going into Sterling's Bend.
Incredibly immediate commentator's curse there.
I commentator cursed myself there. Yeah, under braking into Sterling's Bend, he lost control and put it in the wall. He's currently sitting in the pits, and I think that his race is over. But besides Marco, still 20 cars in.
Oh, and a battle for the lead, I believe, or no. Oh, it was a battle for the lead. Excuse me. I was with you checking to see what had happened to Ravioli there. And an attempt into Hawthorne, I believe it was, that we saw from Tranquerade. Let's see, we got a replay of it here. Had a run on him, and Claridge knew it. He stayed defensive. Wow, not often that you do that up into Hawthorne. Tried to brake very late, and it was a valiant effort, but the Scandinavian just put his wheels off into the dirt there.
Mick Claridge did exactly what he had to do, because if he would have defended the racing line and if he would have stayed on the outside, over Tranquerade would have gotten past, I think. If you get the inside in that corner, you have the position. But like you said, Mick Claridge just defended well, took the inside and stayed in front of him. Now, it was a good overtake. That was the first try that over Tranquerade had to battle for the P1 position. I'm curious now if he will try it again in the same corner or try to lure Mick into a defensive move in another turn. He is not as close as he was 1 lap ago over Tranquerade, currently a few tenths, but Mick Claridge gets a little bit loose on the exit of Surtees. Over Tranquerade as well. Probably a little bit too excited seeing that Mick Claridge got loose, wants to capitalize on that, and his car got very squirrely on the acceleration.
Visually, you can see just how difficult it is to get the power down that we keep talking about on these cars, with the tails wagging on these Lotus 49s. That's going to save Claridge for now. And you mentioned Ravioli retiring. Wood as well has decided it's not worth continuing on at the back of the field. He has retired. I made a note in our script that we could see attrition, but it really hasn't come true so far, and we're halfway through this race. 19 of the 21 starters still out on track as we hop back to see this battle yet again between Australians. Zoko and Von Velsen have not let up, but Zoko a little bit closer to the car behind, as Matt Wright, driver of the day for me, even though he started in 8th, he's in the 7th right now, so I haven't climbed up very high, but man, really punching above his weight, as we mentioned, fighting in the F2 championship, which means he's below a 2500 I rating. He sits at a 1900, everybody around him much higher.
Matt Root is really liking Brands Hatch, and as you said, I just looked at the clubs. These are 3 Australian or New Zealand drivers. Really the battle of the Outback at the moment. But like you say, Matt Wright doing incredible things for his Formula 2 aspirations.
Oh, and maybe I'm thinking of a different Matt Wright there. So excuse me, I believe he's not the cousin or the nephew of Billy Bob Wright. So excuse me for that misinformation. On screen, we saw a big trouble for Von Velsen, but he manages to come away from it and stretch away from Zoko yet again. And boy, it has been tight there. It has been tight as well between Ang and Teolis. Ang managed to get past him yet again to get himself into 11th while we weren't looking a while ago. And we see that battle between 4 drivers in the mid-pack heading through the back of the course.
It's the same 4 drivers we saw a little while ago, but just a different order this time around. These 4 drivers have been on a rubber band the whole race.
We might want to head up to Zoko, because Zoko's got to run up the front stretch down at a Paddock Hill bend. He's going to try and make the move. He's given room at the apex, but Von Velsen finds the power a little bit better, and he covers off the inside. But you can see how much better under braking on the rubber is Zoko. holds around the outside. That's going to give him the inside into Graham Hill Bend, but he's not brave enough under the brakes.
Well defended from Edward van Velzen. Once he got the inside into Druids, there's a 180-degree corner, and as long as you have the inside there, you have such a shorter line than when you have to go around the outside. It's very difficult to make an overtake there. As we look at Tony Theolis, who had a little incident, I saw, he had contact with Hideki Corfisto. Hideki Corfisto tried to move, as we go into a replay of the incident, into Druids. As you see the yellow and black car there trying an incident. Trying to move.
Can we get an onboard of Raymond Smith? He was that blue car on the inside. He might have actually made contact.
Andres Bruno, I think that was.
Well, yeah, I think you might be right. Yeah, this is the view from Smith behind them. Here's Bruno. Good catch. Woo! Car sliding across, wipes his brow, and continues on. And that's going to promote Bruno up to 13th. Nice job for him keeping cool.
I hope that the Latin American driver doesn't have any damage, because it seemed on my screen at least that he touched the car of Tony Theolis there. So I hope that he can continue unscathed through that incident. But all that caught Raymond Smith up to the back of Andres Bruno. Raymond Smith just a few tenths behind him, as we see Hideki Corfisto in the pits at the moment.
Yeah, unfortunately, he was not able to continue. The Finn takes a tow back into the pits. Bruno doing his best to continue on. Up at the front, things have stayed very, very tight. Train grade still within 2/10. I think it's fair to say that he's got slightly better pace, but just not quite enough to try and find his way past Mick Claridge. And it's down to 10 laps to go now.
Yeah, time starts ticking, I think, Joe, for Overtriangulate. With only 10 laps to go, how much more overtaking maneuvers does he have? Because Mick Claridge is not a driver that makes a lot of mistakes, as he gets a good run now on the start-finish straight, but once again not able to put it side by side into Paddock Hill.
I thought for sure he was going to have a go, and he sets the fastest lap yet again on that one, a 23.292. So he's brave, but just still kind of trying to wait for the right moment. He wants to do this right and be able to send it in without contact on Mick Claridge. And one thing we haven't been watching is the battle for 8th between Kemp and Morin. These two have been very close. Morin holding off the Californian of Kemp.
I was just about to talk about this. Yeah, Kemp is just behind him. He was a little bit quicker than Richard Morin. Tried to give a look in the inside of Paddock Hill, but not able to put it side by side. But extremely close as they're going through 30s now. New Kemp doesn't get a very good exit. A little bit worse than Richard Morin, so he won't be able to try and move here. But yeah, New Kemp having a good race, starting in P13, making up 4 positions so far.
As we had our eyes on that, Smith did get by Bruno for 12th position. Don't need to get a replay of that. And right now, I believe... Oh, Gary Anderson had something happen to him that we missed. He's been in the pits for a long time. So whatever happened to him, I think he has retired as well, as he has been sitting in the pits, even though he's still sitting in his car. So he might still try to work his way out.
Sorry, Edward van Velzen just spun. Edward van Velzen just spun. Oh, and he gets hit hard. Neil Kemp. Oh, Neil Kemp, who was doing such a good job starting in P13, was driving P9. Hits him square as we go into a replay here for Edward van Velzen. Neil Kemp is limping to the pits.
And Van Velzen, you can see it spun all by his own. Just the rear of the car came around in clearways. And poor Neil Kemp, he was almost blind coming into there with cars all around. With Morin up ahead of him, just trying to take his natural line, and the next thing he knew, there was an Australian sitting in front of him.
Such a shame for Neil Kemp. He was, like I said, he was having a great run there, driving P9. Not a lot he could have done there. And also a shame for Edward van Velzen. He was having also a very good run, battling there with Benjamin Soko for that P5 position. It seemed like he was able to stay in front of his fellow countrymen, but yeah, that little mistake caught him out in the end. Still able to continue though in P9.
Speaking of the commentator's curse, just a few laps ago, I was talking about how attrition didn't seem to be playing a factor today. We've gone from 2 retirements now to potentially 5 retirements. I think you're going to stop talking about that for a while as we check back in with our leaders, and Trangarade continuing to really push this car to the limit. He has been sliding a lot. Now, they're coming up to lap traffic. That could play a factor. As polite as drivers try to be around this course, it can be difficult to try and get out of the way here, Johan.
Yeah, it's a difficult track to overtake lap track, and they are coming up to traffic. They are coming up to Johnny Bell. Johnny Bell, oh, that was really close with McLaren. McLaren had to lift a little bit there to avoid that car. Over Trangarade tries it on the outside, not able to put it side by side into a hard turn, and he immediately goes back to the apex and defends it. Oh, I wanted to say like they only have 1 car directly in front of them, and like several tenths of seconds there is to the next car, but that almost gave the lead to Over Trangarade there.
And we're going to see, I think what caught them out, there's that little kink on Pilgrim's Drop, and I don't know about you, but in my experience, it can be a little hairy through there. It looks like nothing, but in this car, it's a crest, and you can see Mick Claridge just being caught out, being unnerved by that car, caused him to lift, wanting to preserve his machine.
Incredibly close. Yeah, look at the gap between those 2 wheels. There's a hair width between them. Now, luckily for Mick Claridge, he can continue, however, but he's under heavy pressure of Over Trangarade as the duo goes into Druids. Just a few tenths between them.
Down to 6 laps to go now. And because of the incidents that we've seen throughout the course, of course, we saw Neil Kemp when we saw Von Velsen involved in an incident. Those were 2 of our closest battles. That separated pretty much everybody else. The only other good battle on course is between Smith and Bruno, but that's way down the field. And with so few laps left, I almost feel like we need to stay here with our top 2 to see if anything is going to be able to happen between them. Some information from Neil Kemp, and he is apparently reported that he is unable to continue with the damage on his car. So that's confirmation that Kemp is a DNF today.
Yeah, that's a shame. Now, one driver that we saw in the pits a little while ago was Hideki Koifisto, who had damage in his crash with, I think, Tony Tuolis and Andres Bruno. He managed to get back out. He's 2 laps down, currently driving P17. He will be trying to overtake Daniel M. Murphy in these last 6 laps.
Through Paddock Hill Bend for Ove Trangarade, car very sideways, and that's going to cost them a little time as they head towards Druids. We talk about Trangarade so much, but Mick Claridge has been a very cool customer out there in front, has fended off any attacks that Trangarade has made, and even though there's been a couple mistakes here and there, Claridge has defended very successfully.
Exactly. It's a track where I feel, at least, Joe, that it's quite easy to defend. Even though if you make a small mistake, it doesn't get punished so hard as you have in other tracks. So like you say, even though Mick has a few little errors today, he's still able to defend that P1 position. Over Trangarade not able to capitalize on it. Now with only 5 laps to go, 4.5 laps to go basically, we said before the clock is ticking for Over Trangarade. Now where is a position where you would try and overtake, Joe? I would think Paddock Hill, maybe into Druids. But it's really difficult to put your car side by side here.
Well, I'm going to steal a line from one of our former commentators, Kevin Brown. The entire track is a passing zone for Ove Trangarade. I don't think he has any one place to try and look at, because at this point, he's got to just go for wherever he finds himself getting close, wherever he sees Mick Claridge making a mistake. And that's what we've seen so far this race, just like that, is Claridge a little bit off the apex of Paddock Hill Bend, and you can see Trangarade trying to get the power down a little too soon, gets wheel spin, gets himself into the gravel, and that's exactly what I was thinking. It's just any sort of error anywhere on track, he's going to have to jump on it, because he can't wait for any sort of ideal corner.
No, I completely agree with you, Joey. Like, as he has a great run out of Surtees. Oh, Mick Claridge. Oh, immediately. Mick Claridge had a horrible exit there out of Surtees. Even before they reach the next corner, Over Trangarade is already past him, going into P1.
The Norwegian absolutely pounces as soon as it happens. Let's watch the replay on board McClarich. He knows it. He slides a bit wide. He's trying to get the car down to the apex, but there's no luck as he sees the car of Trangrade get by. Now he's going to get opportunities because they've got lap traffic. Gary Anderson moves to the side politely to let the leaders through. And go ahead.
McClarich immediately catches up to the gearbox. Now, is he able to put it side by side in the last corner? Not really, but over Trangrade is sliding, coming out of Clark Curve. McClarich isn't, so he gets a better exit over Trangrade. Squirmick goes on the grass. McClarich avoids him, dives on the inside and gets back into P1.
Wow, look at that. The position traded twice in one lap, and Trangrade's got to be kicking himself, but he's not going to sit on his laurels. He sends it up the inside. Nothing doing there, even though he's given space at the apex by McClarich. Boy, it is on now with only 3 laps to go. Both drivers know that it is all on the line. Clarich has done a phenomenal job. As soon as he saw an opportunity, jumps on it to try and get past Trangrade. Despite his speed today, has just been full of mistakes. Not able to try and keep the Brit behind. I know there's a few battles farther down the order, but with this being for the lead and only a handful of laps, I feel like we need to keep the cameras up here through Westfield they go and up to Dingledale. Now McClarich finds himself starting to extend his gap.
I just want to say mentally, that's such an incredible overtake from McClarich. When you make a mistake like that, you just consolidate and immediately be able to try and overtake again, as he makes another mistake there over Trangrade, being able to put it side by side on the outside of the last corner. But as we've seen before, it's really difficult to keep the momentum there. McClarich on the inside getting a better exit over Trangrade, again swarming over the start-finish straight, not able to get the same amount of traction as Clarich has.
Even though it's called the Brabham Straight, it is not straight, and these cars have such a hard time trying to put their right foot down. Up and around Druids. Oh, gets right underneath the gearbox of McClarich, looking so much stronger around mid-corner. And Clarich with another mistake through Graham Hill Bend. Is Trangrade going to give it a go into Surtees for a second time? No, he is not close enough. They work their way up to Pilgrim's Drop, one of the longest straights on the track, getting it all the way up into 5th gear. And Trangrade just not close enough. We're down to 2 laps to go. The penultimate lap on this 24-lap race. They are 8 seconds clear of Dave Price. There is no worries from behind. It is now attack mode for the Norwegian. He holds right underneath the rear of McClarich as they work their way through Sheen. Now to Sterling's. Oh, and another big bobble from Trangrade as he is pushing as hard as he can to try and give himself any sort of opportunity on McClarich. The white flag is waiting to fly now as they come through clearways, and another slide from McClarich allows Trangrade to stay close. White flag is out, waving. 1 more to go, Johan.
Incredible car control from over Trangrade there, not to bin it in the last lap when he's pushing everything he got to get close to McClarich. He doesn't have a good run, however, out of Paddock Hill Bend. McClarich defends the inside a little bit, steering in a little bit, goes a little bit wide on the apex. Now over Trangrade has a little bit more momentum, but not able to put it side by side to the Graham Hill, Joe.
Don Good pulls off to the side, lets these 2 through. Up to Surtees. Not going to be an opportunity for Ove Trangrade. McClarich, though, going a little slow through that corner. He's now right underneath him. Clarich stays to the inside, middle of the track, trying to hold him off. Trangrade now goes to the inside as Clarich goes back to the racing line. The rear of the car gets out on him. That allows Trangrade to stay close up to Westfield. Can he get an opportunity here? No. Down to the apex goes Clarich, still fending him off. Through Dingledale they go, up to Sheen. And Ove Trangrade not close enough to attempt a brave pass through there. The opportunities are running out. Through Sterling they go. This is it. Last corner. And Trangrade does not get a good exit to give himself a chance. His last hope is a drag race to the line. What is McClarich going to do? He's a little wide off the corner, but it's not enough. As they come to the line, he fended off for the entire race. McClarich takes the win in round 7.
well deserved. If we go back to P5, Benjamin Soko is still in a battle with Matt Wright. Matt Wright is a little bit farther away from Over-Trangerate as Over-Trangerate was to McLaren. A few tenths between them, but Benjamin Soko has to stay calm for 2 more corners to secure that P5 position. Getting a good exit there out of Sterling's Bend, going towards Clark Curve, going towards Clearlinks. Benjamin Soko, hugs the apex, having a good exit out of the last corner. Benjamin Soko being able to secure that P5 position in front of Matt Wright.
Great race from Ben, going from 7th to 5th here today. Not a bad effort. The rest of the field coming through. Teal very narrowly missing out on 7th from Richard Morin ahead of him. Everybody else, though, pretty spaced out through the field. So with that, we are going to close up here today with a quick break. We'll be back, though. On screen, you're going to see all the upcoming races here on GSRC, but stick around because after that, we'll have the official results as well as driver interviews. Welcome back to Brands Hatch. We just watched round 7 of the Lotus 49 World Cup, and I was telling Johan before we went live that if a slower driver gets ahead of someone faster before the race, we're going to have a stunner. If not, it was going to be a snoozer. Well, we got a stunner because Mick Claridge got ahead of Over-Trangerate, and he held him back despite being repassed a couple times, still managed to get back ahead and took the win over Over-Trangerate. It was less than a second at the line, 8 100ths, so almost 9 100ths of a second between them. And Dave Price was never really a factor in this. He finished about 10 seconds back, getting the final step on the podium. A very happy Billy Bob Wright finished in a quiet 4th. He seemed to be very happy with that. He was talking after the race about how happy he was with his set, one of the best he ever had, according to him. Benjamin Soko gets a top 5, who was in a great fight with his countryman, who fell by the wayside. We'll get to him in a second. Matt Wright finished in 6th back there, and Richard Morin coming home in 7th. Gary Thiel gets 8th, who was in a fight in the end with Edward von Velsen, who made a mistake in clearways, lost a number of positions, and I'm sure he'll be disappointed with 9th. Andrew Ang rounds out our top 10. Johan?
Yeah, P11 is the hard charger of today. Raymond Smith making up 4 positions to finish in 11th place. Andres Bruno was one of the drivers that suffered some damage in that crash between Tony Tuolis, Hideki Koifisto and himself, but still managed to make up 2 positions to finish in 12th position. Tony Tuolis, as we said, had some damage in that crash, finished 13th position, losing 2 places in the process in front of Dong Good, the first driver 1 lap down. Johnny Bell finished 15th today in front of Hideki Koifisto, the leader of the Formula 2 Championship, not having a great run today out there. Daniel M. Murphy was the last driver really finishing the race in 17th, and then were 4 drivers that had troubles out there today. Neil Kemp was caught out by that spin of Edward van Velsen, caused him too much damage and he had to retire in front of Gary Anderson, Marco Raffaoli and Matt J. Wood in 21st.
All right, we have our race winner waiting to talk. Mick Claridge with us in the booth now. And Mick, another win, but you had to fight hard for this one. And I have to ask, the first time you lost the lead coming into Surtees there, did you think it was all over? Because Traegerade was just climbing over the back of you the entire race.
Can you hear me all right? I just got problems with the mic.
We got you.
Do you know what? The thing with Uwe is he won't mind me saying this at all. He is so fast. You can see how fast he is. He's fast. I mean, he's driving the Audi now, and he's driving other cars and all the rest of it, and he's fast in all of them, and he's really come on, as you know. I always try and fight my hardest if he gets in front, because I think he watches the mirrors a bit too much, when he's in front, and it's just hurting him. If he could, if he could keep up his pace, when he's chasing someone down, he'd be gone. He really would. So no, I always fight anyone, but yeah, what a race. That was so tough. That was.
Yeah, down to 9/100ths at the line. I think one of the closest finishes we've seen here in the Lotus 49 World Cup. And with Dudagnon not here today, that's going to suck up the last of his drop races, and now he's going to be a lot farther behind. Does this ease the pressure for you on the championship, or do you still feel like it's attack mode through the last 5 races of the season?
Yeah, I'm going to go all out in any race, I mean, as you know, we don't get to drive this car that often, there's not that many races. So when you do get a decent grid and decent race, I want to push and fight for anything, It's just, it's more to me than, the championship is to be in the race, and fighting with people,
Now, we just had an announcement this week, bit of a surprise for some, that iRacing is releasing Belle Isle, the Detroit Grand Prix track. Even though the F1 didn't race at that version of Detroit, are you eager to get that onto the Lotus 49 schedule next season? Or what are your thoughts? Have you ever watched an IndyCar race there?
Do you know what? The only thing I know about that track is maybe, and I don't know if you can correct me if I'm wrong, from IndyCar Racing 2 with the Papyrus Sim.
Yep, that was it.
Yeah. So I know it from that, and that's about it. So I will get the track in there. There'll be no doubt about it. We'll have that track in the schedule.
All right. Well, I look forward to seeing that. Congratulations, Mick. You gave us a great race today to watch.
Yeah, looking forward to watching that one back. See you later, guys. Thanks a lot.
That was our winner, Mick Claridge, talking to us after his win in round 7 here. Up next, we have 4th place finisher Billy Bob Wright to talk to us about a very different race, being all by his lonesome back there in 4th for much of it.
Billy Bob, good to talk with you once again. You finished P4 today. Congratulations. Now, I just after the race we have a little break, and I rewatched your start. You had an incredible start. You immediately got by Edward van Velsen. Was that really where you made the difference today?
Absolutely. Just checking my mic first.
It works. Perfect.
Okay, good. Yeah, that was I don't know Edward, and I'm not sure if I've raced him before, but I didn't know him, and because of that, I had a really good setup today, and I was super comfortable in the car. So I wanted to get by him so I could have a shot at the guys at the front. As usual, they checked out on me, but yeah, I was really focused on the start. I practiced the start a lot in practice earlier this morning just to make sure I had a good launch, and it worked out for me because eventually Ben caught up to him, and they started fighting, and I was able to pull away. So yeah, the start was everything for me.
Was it a difficult race out there for you? Because you were a little bit behind Dave Price. You were in front of the three Australian musketeers that were fighting all the time. Was it difficult to keep focused and really put your own laps there? Or did you manage to settle in your own groove and just finish the race like that?
Well, when I had pressure from Edward in the first part of the race, it was really easy. But I have a habit of falling asleep, as I call it, if I get by myself. And honestly, that was one of the hardest races I've ever done because I really wanted that position. I was better than I thought I was going to get in this race. And in the middle part of the race, when I was all alone, I mean, it was everything I could do to keep my concentration. And I was I was doing some pretty crazy stuff in the car just to wake myself up, so to speak. So yeah, from that perspective, it was I think that's probably one of the hardest races I've ever done, just because I wanted it so bad and I was having a lot of trouble maintaining my concentration.
In the end, you finished 1.5 seconds in front of Benjamin Soko. What caused him to catch up to you at the end? Was Benjamin just very quick out there today?
No, honestly, I was doing everything I could to make myself focus, and so I was letting that gap whittle down, so to speak, so that I understood that if I made any mistake, that I would have Ben right there with me. So honestly, at the end, it was really a situation where I was just trying to keep myself focused and concentrating, and getting him closer was doing it for me. So that was at the end what it was all about. Once I realized about, I don't know, 7 or 8 laps into the race, I wasn't going to be able to catch those guys in front of me. It was just an issue of me maintaining focus, and in that respect, like I said, one of the hardest races I've done in a long time.
Fair enough. A very interesting tactic, forcing yourself to stay alert that way. You finished P4. Congratulations. Next week we have another race at Indy Road. How do you rate your chances there, you think?
I'd be very interested to see how I do there, because I think the only time we've ever raced there, none of us thought it was going to be much fun, and it ended up being one of the better races and one of the more fun tracks that we raced on. So I'm looking forward to getting back there and seeing if in our new, more competitive group, which I got to say again, guys, we have got such a competitive group of guys racing right now. And going to Indy, I think we're going to see that, because it's such a tight technical place and there's so many chances to make mistakes and for people to catch up, that I think we're going to see some really good races there. So looking forward to it.
Well done. Well, congratulations once again with P4, and I'll see you next week.
Thanks, guys. Always a pleasure. Looking forward to seeing what I understand was a really good race at the front. So heading to the broadcast now. See you next week.
That was Billy Bob finishing in P4 out there today. In the meantime, Joe, you've caught up with the driver who finished 1 position behind him, the Australian Benjamin Soko.
Yeah, and I'm curious if Ben was listening to the interview so that he heard what Billy Bob was doing, maybe dash his hopes of how fast he thought he was. But the good news is, Ben, you had a really great battle there with your fellow countryman, Von Velsen, for about half the race, and it seemed to fall apart for him there.
Yeah, I know if I kept putting pressure on him, he'd make some more mistakes. It was good fun, had some good, clean side-by-side racing, and it was good to have Matt Wright there behind us as well.
Now, I don't know if you heard Billy Bob say that he was actually intentionally slowing up for you to catch him. What were your thoughts in the car? Were you pushing hard to try and run him down at the time there?
Yeah, I mean, at the start, Ed and I were seeming to put a lot of pressure on Billy Bob, but then Ed started making more mistakes, which sort of slowed us down. And to begin with, I was thinking that it was a little disappointing that we were going to lose touch with Billy Bob, but then I really started to enjoy the battle, and I wasn't too concerned about Billy Bob. But then eventually Ed spun, and I thought, let's see if I can catch Billy Bob there. But I was suffering a bit of understeer, and I tried everything to preempt this happening in the hot weather. I had a really good cold weather setup, and it didn't work. So I was struggling with understeer. So that was as fast as I could possibly go. And even when I was battling with Ed, I did get past him, but then as soon as I started to try and go a little bit faster, I started making mistakes myself. So I really don't think I had the pace to really catch or pass Billy Bob. Would have been nice, but I think he had me covered.
Yeah, and speaking of passing, we saw it was incredibly difficult around here. Tend to rely on drivers' mistakes ahead, giving an opportunity. For you, where do you consider your weakest part around this track? Because there are some difficult, not just corners, but even straightaways around this place.
Pretty much every corner. No, I was struggling the most. I don't know what corner it is. I think it's you got the two kind of fast ones at the top of the hill, at the back of the course. What's that? Turn 4 and I think turn 4 and 5 maybe. After Sterling, the one after that, I think it is. Anyway, I seem to, throughout some practice, I seem to get pretty good with Sterling. I figured out how to get that one consistent, but I think the one after that, I couldn't get it right every time. Very difficult track. My goal was just to stay consistent and hit my marks, and that's pretty much what got me through tonight.
I was going to say, I think you succeeded in that. A top 5, starting 7th is definitely a job well done. Congratulations on that, and hope to see you next week.
Thanks, guys.
That was Ben Zocco, 5th place finisher today. And that's going to close out our interviews. So we're going to thank a few people. Of course, a big thanks to Ben Zocco for helping organize this championship and bringing GSRC back for covering it. And a big thank you to the Lotus 49 community for wanting GSRC back for yet another season. We've been covering the 49s for over a year now. It's been a joy to bring these guys to air. And as well, thanks to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast listed here on your screen. Additional thanks go to Eric Ekholm and Casey Lalonde, who provide our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of their great work. Thanks to the team today, Johan, Amjad, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. You can also check us out on social media. We're on Twitter at GSR Channel and Facebook at Global Sim Racing Channel. We're also on Instagram at GSRC_Graham. And don't forget, if you head on over to our YouTube page, there's a big red button that says subscribe. Make sure and hit that so that you don't miss a moment here on the GSRC. Now, as was mentioned, the next race is going to be at Indianapolis, but it's not the oval. They're going to be on the road course. This actually puts on a really good show for these cars. With the slipstream coming into play on that front stretch. And boy, that final turn that goes through what is usually the oval turn 1 backwards is very marginal. It is exciting in these cars. That'll be Saturday, May 5th at 9:30 a.m. Eastern. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. Until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.